Doctor?
Hello there.
Hello, hello, hello. Just
Woo.
fired up the live stream. You look freezing. You cold?
I forgot to turn my heater on beforehand, so it is cold in here.
Uh-huh. Well, I know I'm warming up and you're warming up right now too. I'm working on some settings here. I'll be back with you. I'm going to check some levels, just making sure everything's running smoothly with this new initiative I have to do the show live and on YouTube like we do. So we're already live, which is crazy.
YouTubeage.
I've got
YouTube / Star Wars Report.
Yes, sirree, that should do it. I am tweeting it out now, and I will tag you. I will tag you on the old Twitters.
Hey, tell me if you can hear this heater behind me in a second.
I can probably guarantee you already the audio is it's gonna be no, but let's. Mm-mm. No, sir.
Leave that on, then. Warm up my backside.
Star Wars Lo-Fi for the win. There we go, tweeting it.
Hey. So I'm gonna give you some information now.
Let me crank this down. What's
Baby Wars?
The what?
Baby Wars.
Babe.
When you and Savannah finally go down the route
yes.
third pal Nathan P. Butler is doing with fatherhood, motherhood in her case. Check it out. It'll be awesome. It's baby lullaby versions of Star Wars.
Oh, interesting. It's kind of like what we're listening to now.
Yeah. I mean, the one I was listening to, it was the opening theme, and I was like, ooh, wait a minute. And I was like, that is awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. Let me get it. Can I get a sound check from you, sir?
Yes.
Oh, look at
How
that.
are we doing?
Looking good. And coming through on the audio. Sweet. That looks fantabulous.
That is kind of cool.
Yeah. I'm just adjusting our live shots here.
Gonna take the chance to read some Light of the Jedi now that it's out.
Nice. I love it. All right, let me do this thing here and that thing there.
Oh, hey, before we get too deep while you're still setting up stuff.
Yeah, what's up?
Daniel Contreras is wanting to do a national podcaster kind of celebration, awareness kind of thing. February 7th is the tentative date. He's trying to get a bunch of podcasters kind of get together and do some celebrating about the good side of the fandom and all that stuff. And I was like, yeah, dude, I'm down for that. So I told him I'd pass it along to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Do I know? I feel like the name seems really familiar.
You've probably met him at Celebration, because that's when I met him, was at Anaheim. And he's got a website that tracks a bunch of Star Wars fan podcasts. So,
what's his name?
Daniel Contreras.
Do you know how his last name's spelled? No, wait. Daniel Contreras.
C-O-N. Ooh, God.
I think I got it.
T-R-E-R-A-S.
Yep. I think I found it. Oh, Star Wars on Direct? Is that the guy?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's right. That checks. Let's see. Let me make sure I get my live streaming going. Oh, hello, Julian. Hello there. Welcome to the stream. Guys. I'm looking forward to a fun show tonight.
Drop the Kenobi on him.
There he is.
Yeah.
I don't know why my Facebook is in Spanish now. That's exciting.
Oh, that's always fun to find your way out of if you don't know your way around that language.
I do okay. Okay. Do. Ah, there he is. I should probably what's the word I'm looking for? Probably change my Facebook password. That's gonna be a thing I do.
267 in the corner. 267 what? Videos that I haven't seen on YouTube? I don't understand this. What is this in the corner, Riley?
What? Where? Where? In the corner of the...
Of my browser. It's my YouTube up where it says High Republic News. It's saying 267 in parentheses. Like what? I got 267 news stories open?
I have no idea.
Channels that I haven't viewed?
You've got me, man. You've got a friend in me. Yeah. I don't know. Go figure. Now we're talking.
It sounds like almost like a broken Jack in the Box.
That's a good description of lo-fi. It's literally just a play. If you just Google Star Wars lo-fi or punch that into YouTube, it'll fire up right there. It's pretty cool. I've been really into like Ambient Worlds does these really cool ambient videos with just like background footage pulled from like Battlefront and stuff. I think I've talked about them before, but there's sort of like this ambient shot of Endor and just music and sounds that are associated with it generally. For example, let's find one here. a Star Wars one, preferably. Do. There we go. Star Wars music. Okay, so here is Tatooine music and ambience, for example. And this is what it sounds like. Get some wind. And I like what he does. It's not just pure soundtracks. He'll pull stuff from like some of the video game soundtracks and stuff like that, and kind of blend it all together. Like that's definitely from Battlefront.
Nice.
And does a pretty good
job.
Have
you ever heard of 8D?
8D? No.
It's like you have to have your headphones on, and it's like the music's like going around you and swirling around. It's weird. I'd love to hear Star Wars like
in
that,
the
though.
8th dimension.
Yes.
You know what I've been researching? Actually, this probably isn't the worst way to do it because I need to pull up the app anyway to make sure that my music is ready to go. So I'm going to make this official. Just got to click this button, click that button.
Wait. Hold on.
What?
Hold on. Are you going like this kind of official over here? Like
oh, geez. You have an on-air light?
Like lit up?
I just put you on the shot. We're now in the shots. Hi, everybody. Welcome. We're in the video shot. Yeah. It's official. Well, it's almost official. This is a Star Wars Report Patreon exclusive Rogue transmission. Now it's official. Mr. Hurlman, I want to talk to you about Star Wars.
Okay.
Not necessarily the main show, which starts at 8, but I wanted to talk to you about the whole VR thing. I'm
about to try the Squadrons this weekend.
Oh yeah.
My nephew managed to talk his mom into getting him the system when they got the Squadrons game. And she played it last week and it was like, I'm going to bring it over because Mark's going to love it. And I'm like, I am going to love it because I've played the game already and I already love the game. And I'm like, ooh, this is nice. Good.
Well, and that's what it was, is I was interested in playing and I just dove in. You do this sometimes. I dove into the YouTube rabbit hole, researching all the various VR headsets and the advantages and disadvantages of both. And it's something I want to save up for. I think I'm going to snag a set next month. Save some pennies together. But the big thing I wanted, like Squadrons, for me, flight simulation in general is not my favorite kind of game.
Right.
But I mean, I like Star Wars.
There's lots of other options. Right.
There are, and that was primarily what I was looking at is the Vader Immortal series.
Oh, so you're looking at Oculus.
And so that's Oculus, not PSVR, which although it just recently, I think only the first episode, but some of it recently is now available on PSVR, I think.
Check that out.
You know, a quick Google would probably tell me.
See, my wife was leaning towards Oculus, and then when she saw the price tag, she was like,
that's
well,
the problem.
With that price tag, we might as well just get PS5. And I'm like, okay.
You make a good argument.
But yeah, that was as far as it went. Now it's a matter of saving money up for said PS5, and I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon.
It is available, is the short answer. Vader Immortal is available on PlayStation VR on the PlayStation Store. Ooh. The question is whether or not let me find it here. There we go. The question is whether or not it's all the episodes or if they've just done... Although I imagine if they've only done one, they'll do more. The Darth Vader trilogy. Yep, so all 3 episodes are now available, and you can buy all 3 as a $30 set for all 3 episodes. These VR sort of mini movies and stuff are pretty expensive still, because Star Wars isn't the only one to make like a 30-minute show, but it's VR. But it's probably the biggest. ILM X Lab, they're pioneering, as ILM is want to do. They're pioneering a new era of visual effects, which is virtual reality. But I don't know. I was just looking at it, and it seemed like Oculus was still my best bet because I like their game library a lot. But I do have a PS4, so that's really my conundrum is whether or not I should go for the Oculus Quest 2 or the PSVR. Now the Quest 2.
No, go Quest.
Yeah, because
if you're gonna go VR, Nate always said you want to have the PS4 Pro for the better resolution. So if you don't even have that,
no, I don't.
You might as well just go with the other one. You know, I mean, it's a rough one because I think you also have to pay for a little bit more of the. I think you got to buy both hands. I think you only get one with the original. with the PlayStation that you have to purchase a couple more things, whereas the Oculus, it's all there, right?
Yes, pretty much. So because Oculus has two different systems, they have the Rift and they have the Quest. The Rift is designed for like a gaming PC, and it actually plugs into an actual PC, which I don't have. I need a standalone system, or I'd have to like buy a whole gaming PC, which may be something down the road, is to get a beefier PC to do streaming and some gaming on. I feel like that's like a dark rabbit hole that I'm not sure I'm ready to go down.
My old roommate has, like how I've got my studio, he's got one that is just a VR room. And when I go over to their house to do barbecues and stuff, I'm like, oh my God, this is so cool.
I don't think,
put it on.
Yeah, that's not a thing that's going to happen in this household as long as I'm married. This too. But I mean, I think it's a cool concept, but I think Oculus Quest is a great sort of beginner's VR. It's not like super souped up specs, but it has like Beat Saber, and you can do the Vader Immortal VR stuff. But and then down the line, I think I might be a console person as new games come out. So I look at, let's say, the PS5 when we've talked about this. I saw Nathan in the chat was talking about A-Wing being pretty sweet. And I have not. I've only dabbled in Squadrons. I only played like the first level or two. I never went back to it.
Too. We got it for Christmas, but I've played I think maybe 3 times. But these type of games are the type that when you're able to map the controller, you get the best gameplay. And I haven't went in and done that yet. So I'm waiting to do that, because like I realized when I was playing it, normally I would play it with the XY flipped, and I was having a real hard time doing that. So I actually went opposite. So I'm like, man, it's been a while since I played those in-cockpit type games outside of the Battlefront series. So I'm like, I may have to relearn how to fly all over again. But I'm just digging the way that the targeting system works. I'm like, okay, I don't have to hunt for somebody, because I remember on some of the other games, just trying to get it to lock onto somebody was just such a pain in the butt.
Yeah, well, and that's the problem right there. Oh gosh. The other interesting thing about VR where it is now is sort of, it's still a little bit of a wild west of what's going to be the dominant system. It's sort of like the Sega Nintendo era of VR.
Or KF console.
Is it going to be is it going to be the Vive? Is it going to be Oculus? Is it going to be PlayStation VR? Like PlayStation VR has the widest library, but Nathan also posted in the chat, and you make a good point, sir. It took a while for Vader Immortal to come over to PSVR. It started in Oculus and was there for a while, and Oculus is still exclusive to the most recent ILM X Lab project, which is the Galaxy's Edge story. So it's really those things that are the biggest selling points to me, is experiencing stories in VR. And I feel like there's a lot. It's the future of a lot of communications, and it's still kind of clunky technology, but I could definitely see a world where, especially if 2020 just taught us anything, there's a big advantage to being in VR, because VR, something as simple as a cinema, like a virtual cinema, where you and I could like hop on VR and literally be watching a movie at the same time, but a VR headset can project a theater-sized screen right there in your house, and you don't have to have a huge projector and sound system, everything. You just wear headphones and that, and you could just like hang out and talk to your buddy while you watch a movie in a theater. But like you and I would love to watch opening weekend, watch the Star Wars movie together at a virtual theater. But
would we be able to do like the Ready Player One, where we have our own avatars? Like I could look over and I could see like Kroll the Warrior King.
I think so. That's what I mean. You laugh, but I think that's where this is heading. Although it's weird, isn't it? Is that? Well, and that's the thing, is like I am a weird techie guy that is fascinated by this stuff anyway, but I think it might be a while before like society at large, and by society at large I mean my wife and other people's wife and like your wife and stuff, like if we're sitting there with goggles for like 4 hours on a random, Friday night just talking to our buddies watching Star Wars. It's weird, right? The idea of virtual reality is just like an odd technology that we're just not used to yet.
In the next 5 years, what's going to happen? So COVID has pushed Favreau.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So follow me here. They had to dial back on all their filming and stuff. So what does Favreau do? He opens up another studio. So he's got one person in one person in another, and they're VRing each other into the actual footage. Like I could see him doing something crazy like that. He's already got the technology in one room. Let's just build a second room and just start like really playing with it.
They use the same technology. That's the interesting thing is they use the same technology in the positional 3D data on the camera. In the volume, I blanked on the name for a second. If that makes sense, which I really do. I think it's the future, but I think talking to you, I was already leaning towards Oculus anyway. But I think especially since it's the sort of native place that Star Wars and ILMX Lab is doing stuff, I think I'm going to go Oculus, and I think it'd be cool to set up this year some because I want to make live streaming more of a thing. And I think gaming is a very natural live streaming element, just like the community nature. And I'm warming up to the idea. I always I've never personally been a Twitch person that likes to watch Twitch, but I know it is a great platform. And I've seen a lot of my favorite Star Wars fan media has become a lot of the Star Wars YouTubers. Like Star Wars Theory, who are like putting out really cool content on the YouTube platform. So it's kind of inspired me a little bit to want to pursue that with Star Wars Report here, which is one reason, by the way, guys, that we're streaming on the Star Wars Report channel, kind of experimentally. Last few weeks before Christmas, I was doing that on my personal channel just because that's what I had set up. But I think what I'm going to try to do is make this more of a thing, a weekly Tuesday night hangout, and I think maybe starting next month or the month after, I can incorporate that into the setup. But I don't know, Mark, you're probably as much of a gamer as anybody I know on the network, except maybe Michael Morris over at MandoCast. So
Michael and Nathan, yeah.
yeah.
I was doing Twitch streams there for a little while with Spider-Man. And my son's got the new Miles Morales.
Mm-hmm.
So he's been playing it. I haven't had my chance yet to go in and play it. But, I think I need to do that at some point with Squadrons because my wife got me Squadrons. So I was like, yeah.
Oh. I think so. I think it's I'm just a big fan of the community aspect. I wanted to build up Star Wars Report more and build up the community here. And if you guys jumping in live, I appreciate that. I actually want, if you're within the sound of my voice, stick around for the show. I want to incorporate live commentary and listenership into the show itself. So I've got my chat window up so that I can actually kind of monitor the chat as we do the show today.
Going back to our roots, baby.
But this was always my favorite thing to do back when, especially Star Wars Tonight. That was the thing. And frankly, live streaming technology and platforms have become way more accessible and easier to use now too. So I've got my OBS up and running, and let's see. Look at this. I'll do this little transition. There we go. Splash page says we are 3 minutes and 37 seconds out from actually starting the show, which is actually true, which means I should probably jump back to my lo-fi and get ready to queue up the show. Guys, we're going to start here at, look at that, 8 Eastern on the dot. I'm going to make sure all of my levels and everything's good to go, and we'll start the show. Oh, snap.
Oh, I heard a lightsaber.
This week's episode of the Star Wars Report is brought to you by the good folks supporting us over on patreon.com/Star Wars Report.
Let's do the show, folks.
Come.
And who might you be?
It's the Star Wars Report.
Star Wars Report!
Star Wars Report. The place for Star Wars news, features, interviews, and more.
Then we can do something epic.
Good morning. Good afternoon. Good evening. Please delete as appropriate.
The Force. It's calling to you. Just let it in.
Well, hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Star Wars Report podcast. I'm your host, Riley Blanton. And we're here to talk all things Star Wars. Isn't that right, Mr. Mark Hurleman?
This is true.
Welcome.
In fact, I've got notes.
You've got notes? What the heck? You came prepared?
Show notes, baby.
What in the heck? I am shocked. Shocked, I tell you, sir. It's good to have you back, Mark. It's been a hot second. It's been since the holidays, really, since we've been able to get you on the Star Wars Report. So always a pleasure to meet a Jedi.
I'm resisting really hard the dad joke of it's been a whole year. Oh, I did it anyway.
You did? Yep, there. That was it. You just did it. That's exactly what you just did. But yeah, man, welcome back. How's life? Oh, I lost you, Mark. Dang it. I think it muted you for a second.
No,
there
you didn't. I'm just I hit mute instead of
life.
unmuting.
It's left you speechless, is what you're saying.
Right, right. Which is pretty much how I've been with Charles Soule's Light of the Jedi.
Oh.
I just finished it actually yesterday. My advanced review copy. And
yeah.
then the final proof to compare to. In fact, me and Jim just got done recording the Beyond the Films coverage for it, which should be dropping sometime in the next week or two here, probably this week, I'm hoping. But yeah, man, the project, they had that whole Artha thing yesterday. That dropped. They were showing new book covers and stuff. This is, for me, this is a good time. It's a golden age in Star Wars. I say that a lot, but
it's a fresh start. You're right. It's a fresh start. It's a new year. It's no longer 2020. Listen, guys, I understand. This is a little bit stereotypical to be like, oh, thank God 2020's over. But seriously, I'm so glad. It's arbitrary. It's just the rolling over from one day. Literally nothing has really changed that much. But it's a new year.
I had a great idea for a TikTok video where I was like, it's 2020, 2021, 2022. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 more years of 2020.
Something like that. But I'm glad to have you on board. You're right. We do have a lot of news to talk about, and I'm interested to get your take on High Republic. I know I am currently 114 pages in. I don't know why I remember that specific number, but I do. And I'm enjoying it very much. I'll talk about it in Boba's Bounty later in the show. But let's jump into some news.
We have something to report. Come closer, I have good news.
Data brought to us by the Bothan spies.
You can send a clear transmission.
There it is. Listen.
That's right. We have a lot of news, starting off with a morsel, a teaser from the big news this week. But I wanted to touch base because I'd seen a lot of it, and I also thought it was a perfect segue to get your reaction, Mark, because we haven't had a chance to actually get your reaction here on the show to the season finale of The Mandalorian. Spoilers ahead, by the way, folks, if you haven't seen it, but I'm sure you have if you're listening to this podcast. But I think it's indicative of how much The Mandalorian has become the standard bearer, the flag to which the Star Wars fandom has rallied around, because I saw a bunch of articles reporting how Disney is reportedly going to replace or maybe augment the sequel trilogy characters currently at Galaxy's Edge with characters from The Mandalorian. And you know what my first thought? I tweeted this actually at the Riley guys. Like, this is my shocked face. That's my shocked face. I'm not surprised one bit because, like, when you have Baby Yoda, they've already done these sort of unofficial Baby Yodas where they kind of displayed the little Yoda dolls, and they're like, hey, you can believe it, kids, right? So it makes sense to me, but Mark, I want to get your take on it.
It definitely puts to rest little problems like, well, why is your antenna dish on the Millennium Falcon not the right one, man? When you can blend the eras, because think about that was one of the big questions with Star Tours. It's like, well, you got Star Tours over here, what's going on with that? And then we're gonna set it all in this era. Then it did kind of limit what else you would be able to do with it. If you're definitely going to use the characters from The Mandalorian, the way that they have produced Galaxy's Edge as a park amusement, I would assume then that the entire park would shift to that time frame that The Mandalorian was in, or we'll find out, spoiler alert, that The Mandalorian's still alive and kicking and perfectly well and doing stuff at Batuu during the sequel trilogy. That for me is the one thing I find the most intriguing about it, is what are they going to do from the storytelling aspect of it?
Because that was the promise, is that they wanted it to be this immersive experience, and a big part of that was setting it at a specific point in the timeline, at a new location that's kind of remote and it's not weighed down with any previous fiction, and that's the whole idea of Batuu when they designed it.
Well, Disney World's got that luxury cruise ship hotel that you can stay at for a weekend. So, they're knocking the immersive out. So, to do that shift, yeah, that's where my brain goes. It's like, so are we going to fine-tune the experience, or are they just going to be random characters? I guess you could do either one, but it's Disney. I kind of expect a little more, they think this stuff through.
Yeah, I still there's a reason they've left all the character photo ops and stuff in the rest of Hollywood studios. Instead, because listen, guys, kids want to take a picture with Darth Vader. They want to, they want to take a picture with, I don't know, BB-8's not a good example, but all the character photo ops that they have.
Jabba the Hutt.
Yeah, I know. But I think it also is just indicative of what Mandalorian has come to represent. If this should come to pass, it just kind of makes perfect sense that Mandalorian became part of pop culture in every single way that, frankly, the sequel trilogy did. I have to ask, Mark, you're a pretty big Luke Skywalker guy. Pretty big fan of him in the expanded universe, in the films.
Yes.
He's always been. I think Luke, for you, Mark, has been what he has been for many, especially of your generation, which he's sort of the hope, the optimist, the light, the inspiration. Right? He's that character that inspires you to go blow up your Death Star, leave the farm. Right? It's the classic story. But I gotta ask, what was it like seeing the return of Luke, and not just any Luke, just the Return of the Jedi Luke, literally looking exactly like Return of the Jedi Luke.
Right. So you can hear my full in-depth analysis of season 2 with Michael Morris on MandoCast. We just recorded that last night, and I believe he's dropping that either today or tomorrow.
I just saw it in my feeds. Yeah.
Yeah. So you can get my full thoughts on the entirety of that season. When it came to watching Luke, dude, to be honest, when he first shows up and there's one X-Wing, for a second I thought maybe it's Luke. It's probably Luke. And then I was like, but it could be Kyle Katarn. It could be Kyle. It could be Kyle. Oh!
Only you.
Yeah, but if it was Kyle, I immediately talked myself off that ledge, right? And then we see the lightsaber light, and I'm like, okay, that's got to be Luke,
Yeah.
And I'm still kind of in disbelief. The music's got me. I'm watching the action, holy cow. At this point, I'm trying to see the hilt of the saber, but I missed the first 2 scenes that you could see that. My first viewing. On my second one, I was like, yeah, that's definitely Luke's saber right there. Oh,
yeah.
But it happened so quick that if you don't catch it right away, you'll be sitting there spending the rest of that scene going, is it? No, it is. Is it? What? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was kind of like that all the way up through it. And then I kind of had that suspension of the time frame. So when the episode ends and Luke flies off, I'm like, but he's going to fail. That was where I was like, remember people, he fails as a teacher of Jedi. And then I remembered after the fact, somebody pointed it out to me that, there's still 25 years before Luke's order.
There's a lot of time.
I was like, okay,
there's a lot of time.
breathe again.
Yeah.
For me, the big thing after Luke, was where did they go from here? which could be exciting because, now we could actually have Luke as a background C or D character in either The Mandalorian or maybe even the Ahsoka story. That I think would be a pretty interesting thing because, the character itself, when I first saw what they did with the digitation, I was like, oh, it's not Sebastian Stan. Like, I'm a big fan of that idea.
So
But go ahead.
I think I just cut off your point, but I was curious because I've seen some very honestly. I don't know how I feel about it because I've seen some pretty convincing arguments on both sides of like, hey, It's time to recast a character. Don't be precious. Luke Skywalker and all of the Star Wars characters are bigger than their. I'm summarizing, but that's kind of the version of that argument. All of these characters are bigger than just the actors who originally played them. But at the same time, Mark Hamill's still around, and he's obviously gotten a kick out of returning to the character in very different circumstances than he was in the sequel trilogy.
Where I sat with Alden Ehrenreich going in, like I wasn't too thrilled to the idea of having a different Han Solo.
Yeah.
But the more I have watched that movie, the more I can't see anyone else as young Han Solo, and that's one of my favorite Star Wars films now. Yeah. And it didn't start out that way. But the more I watch it, the more I appreciate it. And that's what happened with Luke. Like, when I first saw it, I was like, I didn't feel like the aging was right. I felt like he looked younger than he should have at that age frame. Mm-hmm. And then I was kind of a little butthurt that it wasn't Sebastian Stan. So I was like, Second viewing, I was more willing to accept it for what it was. And I was trying to just see, like, this isn't really any different than Leia being in Rogue One or Tarkin. Okay. Yeah, that's not so bad.
Yeah.
By the third, I knew what was coming and everything. So like I was kind of like the 21 Jump Street, getting all excited. Fourth viewing, the music, everything hit me. I was an emotional mess, man. I mean, the more I watch that episode, the more it just crushes me. And I'm just like, oh, now when I get to that end point, I'm just like, where does the story go from here? And that's, I can't wait to find out next because in my mind, I go all sorts of different directions. I'm like, you either Grogu just disappears with Luke and we don't see him again until he shows back up in the narrative of Din's story. Or we get an option where we can maybe follow Grogu for some of the time in some of the episodes and we learn really cool new things. But I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm excited to find out.
They did kind of close that chapter, and I'm okay with it. Like, I actually think if they'd stretched out the, like, what does he do with Baby Yoda, who babysits Baby Yoda, this Grogu, this episode, like, I think that would have gotten a little tiresome. So I think they've made way for to let Boba Fett be Boba Fett in his series and let the Mandalorian be the Mandalorian, and whatever conflict arises in the remnants of Mandalore and the next Battle of Mandalore, where we will finally get to see a live action Battle of Mandalore, which is what I think is going to happen.
I am in agreement with you. One thing I was pointing out to Michael and even to Jim on Beyond the Films was when I watched Katie Stackoff during that scene where Din comes walking onto the bridge and he's got Gideon and he's got the Darksaber, when you watch all of her facial expressions through all of her dialogue from before she speaks till the end, I swear to God, dude, she is channeling her villain from The Flash. Like, that is the same face she used when she was delivering those lines. And I was like, oh, dude. Like, I am so on the fence there because on one hand, I want to see them go toe to toe, but like I want it to be like Cobra Kai, where like, can we all kumbaya when it's over? Like, like I don't want to have a rivalry here. I like Bo-Katan and I like Din, and I don't want to see one of them die. But at the same time, I do kind of want to see him go at it, and I kind of want to see her have a little dark side action. I mean, she's got My Precious going for the Darksaber, and I want to see that through.
She does. It is like her jealousy was real as she saw the Darksaber in his hand. Like that's definitely a real thing, for sure. So we'll probably dig into a little bit more. We're going to do on the second the next segment after this. We're going to talk all about what's coming in 2021. I'm excited to kind of see what you're most interested in, Mark. But let's actually talk about, I think, the biggest news this week, which is the High Republic, and there's a trailer.
We are the guardians of peace and justice. Beyond the stars is a near endless frontier. Our order was meant to shine its light in even the darkest corners of the galaxy. There, we found an evil that none of us had trained for, that threatens all we know.
an interconnected mega story. That's what they call it. It's a mega story, Mark.
For the survival of the Republic, the fate of all Jedi, for control of the Force itself.
What? A new adventure begins. Star Wars: The High Republic. First novel out now. Mark, did you get a chance to see the trailer? What was your first reaction?
I've been knee deep in information about this stuff, because of the review stuff. So I knew what was coming down the pike and stuff. And when the trailer dropped, I was excited to watch it with everybody else. I've got thoughts, man, especially after Light of the Jedi, digesting that. I don't want to spoil anything. So what I'm going to talk about is the crawl.
Okay.
I'm a little irritated. Just a little irritated. And they talk about it here in the background. Like, it's like this big threat. Okay, I'm down. I get it. There's a big threat, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Uh-huh. But the way they talk about it in the opening crawl, and it's the same at the beginning of all of these books. We're not talking the Dust Jacket one. We're talking the right before you start the story, that opening crawl. A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. I guess this kind of counts as a spoiler, but not really because this has been out forever. But it goes. Let me guess, it's not in this book after all.
There we go. No, you're good. It is
right here. All right, it's that one that starts with the galaxies at peace. Well, I'm going to jump to the third paragraph. It says, but just as a magnificent renaissance spreads throughout the Republic, so does a frightening new adversary. Okay. Now the guardians of peace and justice must face a threat to themselves, the galaxy, and the Force itself.
The Force itself.
Three things.
The what are the three again? We got the galaxy, the Force.
The threat is to the galaxy, the Jedi, and the Force itself. This book is awesome. Don't get me wrong with this critique, but I don't think that the threat that we see out of this book threatens the Force at all. It barely threatens the Jedi. So, there's got to be more to this series than what we get in this first book because of that opening crawl. Because that opening crawl is, again, used in other books. So I'm like, okay, there's something coming.
Yeah.
That said, that's my only downside, man. This is cool. There were so many times when I was reading this, Riley, that I was like, this feels a lot like the New Jedi Order.
It does, honestly. Like I am about 114 pages in, like I say.
You're right before the interlude where we get to know the villains.
I think I literally got up to the interlude, I want to say, and that's where I stopped.
Looked. 114 is right there.
Oh, really? That's where I got a good place. I literally did that in like one sitting too. It was very captivating, but I will say this: it's they're promising a lot. They're selling really hard, and I'm not sure how it's going to be tough to live up to, because they're definitely showing a lot of confidence in this series. This is sort of the next era, and they broke it down. Like there's a recent online event with all the authors talking about the reveals, and let's get to the brass tacks. Let's break it down. They're doing 3 phases. Mm-hmm. Sounds very, very MCU like.
Marvel? That sounds marvelous.
3 phases. Phase 1, Light of the Jedi. Phase 2, Quest of the Jedi. What? Phase 3, Trials of the Jedi. So Phase 1, Mark, you ready for this? Phase 1 goes through this year, 2021, into 2022, and they're not quote. I'm not sure how far. I'm not going to say how far it goes into 22, but I can say that there will be a steady stream of books, comics, and magazines coming your way on a monthly basis, which is really exciting. Revealed Lucasfilm Publishing executive creative director Michael Siglin on the virtual panel Monday. Now, I actually feel bad sometimes in my Star Wars career because I've landed myself at a lot of conventions over the years, and I always end up going to these author panels, and the books aren't necessarily my thing. And I'm like, man, Mark would be mad that I'm not.
Hey, I live vicariously through you sometimes. That's okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but I've been to plenty of, and I've seen the executive creative director, Michael Siglin, he'll often be the host of these panels, and they'll kind of break down with the authors what the various characters. And so he's been at the helm of publishing this whole time. And I think but I get the sense that this is their first crack at breaking off into their own universe. And I think that the authors and the publisher is really excited about it. But that's also, I think, why they're selling it. So it's a multi-year initiative, and that's that's unheard of since the old expanded universe. You're right. This is very New Jedi Order, but like times 5.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's what me and Jim were talking about on Beyond the Films was, when the New Jedi Order came out, the comics weren't tied to it. I mean, it was all just in the books. And pulling from things from comics and all those things and having the collaboration there. The closest that we've seen from Lucasfilm in this, I would say, would have to be Shadows of the Empire, where, we had the talk of Lucas from the start. We had the video games, the comics.
That's true, yeah.
Stuff. So, I mean, that was probably the closest to this. But as I was reading this, I mean, one of the things that I would say it reminds me of would be a Brian Freed story in the aspect of how many people are thrown out there. And again, I'm talking about Charles Soule's Light of the Jedi here.
Okay.
Charles does a great job of bringing out so many characters for this era. I mean, some of them are literally just a name drop, but a majority of every time he does it, it's here's the name of the character, their species, a character description, a trait, things right there and then. Whereas when I was reading Brian Freed stuff, it's like a lot of names, but there was just literally just names. And then you never heard of the names again, and they were just there for nothing. Whereas when you get done with this book and you look at the books that are coming down the line, you're like, Skier. Skier's, he's going to be in the comics. Okay. Rose, she's got her own young adult book. Okay. Oh, and the Wookiee's got a kid's book. So, you immediately start to recognize all that stuff from the descriptions here. So I really got a kick out of that. What I find interesting, though, is this whole phase thing, because, we think immediately Marvel.
Sure.
But I don't know if, when they talk phase, if they're meaning more like a marketing push or if they're also talking marketing / story, kind of like what's going on with Netflix right now with the Transformers trilogy, where, the second trilogy the second season of the trilogy just dropped. The first season came out and you kind of get a little bit more, and each season has its own flavor kind of thing.
It's definitely,
the titling of this leads me to believe it's like that. But
that's what they're telling us, Mark. I think that they're definitely at least selling it as phases based on story, because they detail phase 1. Because of course aka today, right. The first book dropped, which is Charles Soule's Light of the Jedi. Makes sense. That's the first name of the first phase. But also Justina Ireland's A Test of Courage and Cavan Scott's The Great Jedi Rescue. Claudia Gray's Into the Dark arrives February 2nd. 2 comic book series, which is Marvel's Star Wars The High Republic and IDW Star Wars The High Republic Adventures, which is geared towards younger.
That doesn't have the Chinese books in it then, does it? So those must be their own thing altogether. Because I know that their story set in the High Republic is like 50 years before episode 1. So it's like 150 years after everything that's happening right now that we're just getting in Light of the Jedi. So, because I don't see that anywhere. And that was what made me think about, well, if that's part of the interconnected story, then how are they going to work that with that such a big time gap? But the only thing I could think of is because it's exclusive to China, that's probably doing its own thing altogether.
Yeah, I think so. I'm excited. The rest of the phases that we know as well. Let's see. Rising Storm is Scott's second novel, and that comes out in July. So they're hitting pretty fast and furious, which I like. I think that it has a lot of potential. I will say this: I'm not super sold on any of the characters so far in the book. Nobody's really jumped out to me as someone I really care about.
What about Bell and Loden? Do you know those character names?
Yeah,
yet?
That's probably the most compelling story. They kind of remind me of the Qui-Gon Obi-Wan dynamic.
Right? Or Anakin and Obi-Wan at times.
Yeah.
They were one of my favorites of the sets of Jedi, because I feel like the Jedi come in little play sets in this book.
Yeah.
like there's the Great Rescue where they're all there except for Yoda and the younglings. Oh wait, no, in the Forest you can feel them. I'm sorry, that's probably spoilers.
Well, that's fair.
I like the fact that the way that you come across the Jedi at this time frame, it's their golden age, and so the technology and stuff feels old but new because of the way they're using it. But I think that when you get to the point where the Jedi start breaking up in the story, you're not following them as a big collective. I think that's where, for the Jedi, it's kind of hard to pinpoint who the main players are in this story. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. They really need character lists in their books again. Like, especially when you're kicking off a new era. That was one thing I loved about the New Jedi Order. Throw some maps in there too, especially with having this whole Starlight Beacon and stuff going on. But one of the things Jim had pointed out is that Marvel Comics is going to be doing a Luke, or not a Luke, but a Dr. Aphra adventure where they're going to be apparently going to the relics of the station. I was like, I don't know how that one missed me. There's so many things with this project that I'm still finding out new stuff every day.
Yeah. No, I think here's the thing I don't want to do, because I've seen a lot of prejudgment on High Republic already on social media and stuff like this. Like you do, you see this stuff. But like I'm excited to finish the book and come back next week with an objective review that actually talks about the strengths and weaknesses, because I do have some reservations with some of the storytelling and some of the way that they're framing the marketing, but I don't want to make any assumptions about the story itself. So I look forward to actually,
when it comes back around and it's been out for a while, I too would love to chat with you on marketing, because that, like I said, with the crawl, that's one thing. Man, and I can't wait for you to hear the episode of Beyond the Films, because we had a great theory as to how we could come up. We came up with a retcon or the plot idea going down. We're like, that'd make it all make sense. But until you finish the book, I really can't put anything in your head.
Yeah. No. I'll be back. I'm gonna finish it this week. I am. I literally read through like a third of it in one sitting. It is a page turner. I do enjoy that about it. But you know what? I think we got to move on and talk a little bit about, until we actually have more High Republic to actually discuss on the podcast. We're going to have to talk some about 2021. Mr. Hurlman, it's a new year. New start.
Which link should I be opening
new
first?
New Star Wars. I snagged 2 links of like the video games and then Disney Plus primarily. But there's a lot coming out. There's a lot coming out in the world of Star Wars. And I'm probably as optimistic, honestly, even without a movie coming out, as I was during any year of the sequel trilogy. I'm just excited for this year being a Star Wars fan. It feels more familiar to me to be like talking about new books and video games and stuff like that's what we had to do for years before the Disney era.
I'm telling you, my man, I am so excited about the TV aspect.
That's true.
We were just talking about season 2 of The Mandalorian and where season 3 could go. One thing I'd asked Michael, and I'll ask you too, do you think The Mandalorian should end after a 3rd or 4th season, or should it be a show like Supernatural that just keeps going until they either decide we've gone enough and come to a conclusion, or should they do like Obi-Wan, where they're like, hey, we've got an idea, we're going to only do 6 or so episodes, then we're going to pull the plug. Or with the case with The Mandalorian, we're going to do 3 seasons or 4 seasons, however that number is. I mean, which approach do you prefer now that it seems to be that Disney is willing to do both?
Yeah. I think I definitely think get the sense that they're 1 or 2 seasons and out on most of these projects. I don't think and Mandalorian's the exception. I think that's going to be honestly the longest running. Because
and I don't see it going on too much longer unless they decide to always keep his helmet on.
I legit think they've got 1, maybe 2 more seasons of Mandalorian, and that's all. That's all we've got. I think that's where that's going to top off. But I have to say, what rather than going through the whole list, just to start off, what are you like most excited about in 2021 in terms of Star Wars?
That's a good question, because are any of these TV shows actually coming out in 2021?
Like we know one of them is, but I think it's only
Boba Fett. It's just Boba Fett. Like, we haven't even locked down that The Mandalorian is 100% going to drop in November/December of 2021. Like, I'm like, that's such a weird mystery to me. How did this happen? Hey, how does a new show get put out before that other show? I mean, because, like, you know, of the list of shows, I am excited about a lot of them. The Boba Fett one, I don't know, because, like, I was excited about the character, but where that little sneak peek went, I'm like, wait, we're a gangster now? Like,
yes.
I'm down with the retcon of finding out that maybe he was never really a hired gun and maybe he was actually more like a lieutenant. Like, okay, I'm down, but
I don't think
this is a whole new Fett for me, buddy.
I don't know. I think it makes sense to me, just that it's his revenge. Like, Jabba's already gone, so it makes perfect sense for him to be the one to, like, take out. Honestly, that was my favorite scene in the whole episode, of the last episode of Mandalorian. Just seeing freaking fat Bib Fortuna just taken out right there on the dais. It was amazing.
The McClunky.
That's what I'm personally most excited about. Second place is probably Bad Batch, which is the other two confirmed. There's really those two confirmed Disney Plus series when we're talking like what's coming out in 2021, at least that we know of. So I'm Bad Batch just because I have this very emotional attachment to the Clone Wars era, and I love that it's continuing in the form of the Bad Batch. And, like, literally with the logo and the trailer that they gave us, it's like Clone Wars fading into Bad Batch, really, like, leaning into that connection. I like that a lot.
Right. In fact, I've already pre-ordered my Crosshairs and Hunter Black Series 6-inch figures because they look so badass. Nice.
I love it.
Yeah, I mean, you know, when we would talk about the ones that were mentioned, one that really excites me, again, getting back to High Republic, was the Acolyte. When they first mentioned it, they didn't tell us at the time that was going to actually tie into the High Republic. And later they said, it is. It's going to be at the end. And I'm like, ooh, like, I don't even know where we're going to go there. I've got theories that you can hear on Beyond the Films where we spoil the heck out of the book, but I don't want to go there. I mean, I do. I want to share it with you guys, but I want you guys to get there and get this kind of high on your own. Because if it's spoiled, it's not the same.
No, it's not the same. No, I can appreciate that. But, you know, the other interesting thing with Star Wars is the sort of gaming side, and that's, for the longest time, the future, well, not the longest time, but there was Battlefront 2. Well, here's the interesting thing. Here's the thing. All right, you guys ready? Here's the thing about Battlefront 2. Talk about, like, the worst launch, honestly, in video game history. The most disliked Reddit post ever from the developers. Like, honestly, that's where it started. It started with a really bad rap with the gaming community, and it hit hard. Like, to the point I remember reading rumors about, like, Bob Iger and, like, bigger brass at Disney were getting ticked off at EA for, like, damaging the brand of Star Wars, like, writ large, because of the way they rolled out Battlefront 2. But ironically, that's sort of the narrative, is like, well, and it sucked, and they weren't doing anything else, and they finally redeemed themselves with Fallen Order, which we all, if you guys listen to the podcast for any amount of time, you know what I think of that. Great story. Gameplay sucks. But what's interesting is if you are a Battlefront nerd like me, which I've sort of become this year throughout COVID, jumping back into Battlefront 2, the player count, Mark, I don't know if you know this, but, like, in the gaming community, the player count for Battlefront 2 has been skyrocketing since Mandalorian's been coming out, and players are looking to jump into Star Wars more, and the numbers just keep going up. Like, back to what they were when they stopped support for it and stopped releasing new content abruptly last spring. And so, like, last spring they just kind of abruptly cut off all future developments. They had a lot of stuff in the pipeline as far as new heroes, new expansions that they're going to keep releasing, but they just never did.
Wow.
Yeah,
I thought they were still putting out content. I was, like, looking forward to a new Mandalorian update.
They weren't. But I'm sure that would have been the case. We would have gotten it, and it's such a shame that the game got abandoned. But I think a big part of that was that it was sort of like its reputation was permanently sullied but it has, even now, currently, a very passionate base of people still playing the game, which has just been growing in recent months. I find it fascinating that it's the game that refuses to die. It was like back in April when they stopped releasing new content. But I think that's exciting because I'm really excited about the future of Star Wars gaming. The big flagship, obviously, next year is Lego Star Wars, the Skywalker Saga. No confirmed date. Rumors are for a spring release. I would imagine that tracks pretty well. So that will definitely be, like I talked about previously, Mark. I think what will get me to jump into the PS5, the next gen consoles, is Star Wars games, and so I'm just waiting. I'm just waiting for that news.
Speaking of news, it just seems like, why don't we have any news like that? Multimedia Project. Where's the High Republic game?
Right?
Wait a minute. How did I not? What?
What if they? All they need to do is call it Knights of the High Republic.
Right?
Yeah.
I'd be down with that. I'd be okay with that. I wouldn't even second guess it.
Yeah. Ryan in the chat said
maybe that's phase 3.
Battlefront 2 has always been incredible, and the naysayers are babies. Well, and that's the thing, is like the actual gameplay of Battlefront 2 and the visuals of it's incredible. And it's my absolute favorite type of gameplay. So I want Battlefront 3, and I want it with, like, imagine if they had a High Republic expansion and a Mandalorian expansion. Sorry, I'm totally like I can't leave the Battlefront part alone. But I really hope that we get an announcement for another Battlefront game. Maybe not next year, that might be a little soon, but in the coming years, I really hope we get a proper Battlefront 3.
Well, I would think with PlayStation 5,
that's what I'm thinking.
You're going to want to put something out on that system.
Yeah.
And they've been doing all the backwards compatibility with the other digital games. So, I mean, just one more reason to go out and get yourself those other games on the PlayStation 5 with the upgraded graphics. Mm-hmm. What I want to get is the original Battlefront 1 and 2, but get the download content for that. Because by the time I got online, woke up or whatever that phrase is, I never played that game online, so I never got the downloaded content. There is no Kit Fisto, no Visage Ventress for me, and what other goodies that were unlocked on that download content. I have no idea how to get that stuff, but I want it.
Yeah, I think so. I think that'd be great. It'd be amazing. Nathan Nathan in the chat has a good point. Hot take. The script of the High Republic game is what Claudia Gray couldn't talk about yesterday. So evidently in the stream, there's something that Claudia Gray couldn't talk about. Something like that. That would be, dude, that'd be amazing. Especially if it's like a first proper open world Star Wars game, which we haven't really had to date, that fit the current, next gen consoles. Dude, like we were talking about in the bonus Rogue transmissions, we were talking about, VR and the future of that. But I mean, come on. Knights of the High Republic open world game, role playing, like a Skyrim style, but in the Star Wars universe. I could die happy.
Destiny 2 kind of reminded me of Star Wars in that regard, with the way that it was an open-ish gameplay.
Yeah. I think so. And so as far as games go, obviously Lego Star Wars, I'm a sucker. That's honestly what kind of got me. I kind of got into games, period, around the time that the first Lego Star Wars came out.
That's my kids' first game, because it was really their first game was Grand Theft Auto 5, riding on the back of the motorcycle while Dad was running from the cops. That's the highlight of their day, was getting on the back of the bike.
Parent of the century, Mark. Parent.
then we get to Lego, and I'm like, you can't die. Like, you just lose your tokens. Like, this is great. But yes, 2-year-old Gavin and 3-year-old Taylor had a blast. But you've been continuing to play. I think I just got the greatest hits, or the saga. I don't think I got the complete saga one yet. But isn't it just the same exact game with new stuff every time, right? Like,
basically
every version of the old game through the levels. Right?
The puzzles get increasingly complex. Not like not Jedi Fallen Order complex. Let's not be crazy. but they do. Like I recently when PlayStation had a like a flash sale over the holidays, and so I bought the Lego Star Wars: The Force Awakens and played through the first level, and I was like, man, this game has a lot more like intricate puzzles than it used to, but they were playable, they're fun. I was having a lot of fun, and the gameplay's evolved. It's a lot smoother, a lot kind of more open and more territory to play, but you know.
Well, I need a reason to go out and buy it again because my original Xbox that I let my son have in his room no longer will open the disc, and it will no longer work at all. And then I found out that some of the games are actually backwards compatible on my Xbox One. Thankfully, almost all my Star Wars games, with the exception of the Lego one. So
nice.
I was looking for an excuse already, so I'm like, well, I might as well get it. Be the original game again.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, so I'm excited. I think the Skywalker Saga also has some new open world-ish, not open world, but like much more expansive gameplay. So, yeah, Lego Star Wars is awesome.
Speaking
I'm
of
a fan.
expansive, right? Did you know that there are levels to our patron?
Why, yes, there are. There are two.
You could expand your level. How?
Well, you can. Well, Mark, it's crazy that you asked this, but if you go to patreon.com/Star Wars Report, you can see every single level and support the show directly and get some cool bonus content. Like we briefly mentioned Rogue Transmissions a moment ago. We did a pre-show segment on Star Wars and VR, and talking about the future of Star Wars gaming. So we had a fun time kind of BSing around as I've nerded out about all things Star Wars VR, which ILM X Lab is at the forefront of developing VR. And I'm just excited that Star Wars is the kind of thing that, you know, is leading the way on that. But also, hey, if Patreon's awesome because it's a way to support the show directly and get cool bonus content for doing so. We have the Bothan High Council level where we'll be setting up we do a monthly hangout. We didn't get to do one last month because of the holidays, but we'll be setting one up here shortly for January. So you can check it all out, patreon.com/Star Wars Report. And make sure you subscribe to the show. Even if you can't, make sure you subscribe to the show at whatever podcatcher you choose to use. Mr. Mark Hurleman,
Yeah.
let's punch a little bit of Boba's Bounty.
As you wish.
As you wish. Now every time I play Boba's Bounty, I'm like, oh yeah, he's back in Star Wars. That guy. As you wish. Tamara Morrison on Boba Fett. So we touched on it briefly, but my Boba's Bounty this week is Light of the Jedi by Charles Soule. Charles Soule, my favorite, I think fair to say, favorite Star Wars writer. Mostly for his Vader comics.
That's impressive. I mean, I was just gonna, good in general, but that's
I mean,
because Claudia Gray is up there, man. I was like, and now Charles.
It's the Vader
Charles
comics,
wrote
man.
a book, and I'm like, ooh, I don't know where to put.
It's just you can't. The greatest Star Wars storytelling, I think, of the Disney era, the original Vader comic run. Not the most recent one's a little weird. But I love all of Charles Soule's run on Vader. It's amazing. It's amazing. If you haven't read it, you've got to. So it's fair to say that I was pretty excited and drawn a lot more into jumping into the High Republic when I found out he's doing a Star Wars novel for the first time. So I'm like I say, I read the entire sort of, I would say it's like a long prelude that sets up this imminent. And I'll stay mostly spoiler free, very light spoilers here a little bit for the book, but. Out today, everybody, Light of the Jedi. But it introduces a whole series of Jedi Knights coming to the rescue of this imminent threat to the whole galaxy. And it sets up a universe where the Outer Rim is sort of this unheard of Western frontier. And I like the setup. I like the era. I love the idea of the High Republic. So far, none of the characters have really grabbed me yet, like I was talking about briefly before, Mark. But I don't want to. I want to reserve judgment because this really is the setup. This whole prelude. It's a long one, but it's a page turner. I read almost the whole thing in one night. I just buzzed through 100 pages because each chapter starts with X amount of time until impact, and it kind of has this way of drawing you in, like impact of what? What's going to happen? And so it draws you in that way. So I'm excited, and I'm hopeful that that some of these characters can fill the shoes, because that's to me, Star Wars, really, the character archetypes are important, and we haven't really seen Star Wars characters in the archetypes that we know yet. So I'm excited to see heroes rise in a way that I would expect the Jedi Knights of the High Republic, the guardians of peace and justice, to be the heroes that I would want. So I look forward to finishing the book. Mark, I know you finished it. What's your Boba's Bounty?
Man, there's been so many good things lately in the last month. I mean, I should do Light of the Jedi, but I feel like I've talked about it enough at the beginning of the episode that I probably should just shut up now before I pull a Tom Holland.
No, you're good.
Disney mad at me. Behind me, if you're watching our YouTube special,
What?
streaming live.
I should have plugged that during the segment. My gosh.
Right. My 6-inch series. I
right.
finally got my Ahsoka.
Let me full screen you for the folks. There you go.
So yeah, behind me over here at the end of my finger is Ahsoka Tano Mandalorian equipped. I've got the Ahsoka Tano 332nd Stormtrooper. I have another one. The idea was to flank them, but then I was like, I'm gonna leave one in the box. He looks so good. so the other one's still in the box. I do actually have Jaina Solo over there, but that's not new. In the new stuff also, though, I got the up here is the Loyalist Mandalorian, the
Nice.
Mandalorian. I got Boba Fett flying because, of course, Boba Fett's got to be flying. You can't see Django. He's way up there, as are my other Mandalorian stuff. But, yeah, I've been getting a lot more of the Black Series. I started taking the advice of some friends that were like, you should just be buying them from the stores. You should just be going online, doing it all through Hasbro Plus, Pulse, this, that, the other thing. And I started doing the Walmart stuff, and that was a nightmare. I ordered that stuff in June, and I just now got the last one like a week ago.
Congratulations.
And one of them even got canceled, and then my wife had to reorder it. A whole drama. But yeah, I mean, I really get a kick out of them. And then I've got a Venom pool over here because I also do Marvel. Legends figures.
I like it. No, keeping some collecting alive in the segment. I appreciate that. I too can appreciate that. Yeah. Well done, Mark. I think that's the show. I think that is about all you can do for an episode of the Star Wars Report podcast. Let's get some Ewoks going on here. Actually, you know what? I'm going to do this right at the beginning of our credits. I know you guys, you're about to turn it off. You're like, all the plugs at the end of the show, whatever. No.
God, Ewoks behind me.
Oh, there you go. Maybe a little jam session going. Mark, you can do, here's what we're going to do for the YouTube. You can get the Ewok jam session going. I'll put you on full screen there. And while Mark's Ewoks are doing some jamming, I'll tell you guys that you should subscribe to the Star Wars Report YouTube channel. YouTube.com/Star Wars Report. It's that easy to remember. YouTube.com/Star Wars Report. Tonight, as we record this, is our sort of first time live streaming from it. So on Tuesday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, for the foreseeable future until it has to change, like it does, we're going to do the show live and incorporate you guys listening live in the chat, hang out some before and after the show, make it basically a virtual Star Wars hangout sesh. So make sure you join us, subscribe, turn on, smash the like buttons, whatever you do, whatever it is, and we'll be putting more content on the YouTube channel as well. So make sure you do that. Subscribe, YouTube.com/Star Wars Report. Just search for Star Wars Report. Same thing applies to wherever you listen to podcasts. Just Star Wars Report. And I do encourage you to share the show. If you got any buddies, any friends that are into the whole Star Wars thing, let them know about this about the podcasts. You can follow us on social media. It's at Star Wars Report on Twitter. Mr. Hurlman, people can find you at Illogical Rogue 2. Any plugs that you want to shout out?
Yeah, just a true story. I'm also on TikTok doing stupid things.
If you want to see Mark do stupid things on TikTok, it's at Illogical Rogue 2, right? Illogical Rogue 2?
Yep.
Nice. I love it. TikTok. It's crazy, guys. And then also, I'm not on TikTok. But I'll tell you what I am. I'm on Instagram. It's at The Riley Guy. I'm also on Twitter. Same handle, The Riley Guy. You can shoot us an email, StarWarsReport@gmail.com, and stay in touch in between shows. On the website, make sure you check out all the content at StarWarsReport.com. Until next time, guys, may the Force be with you. And remember, many Bothans died to bring you this podcast. Thanks for jumping in on the stream, guys. Appreciate it. Until next time, we will see ya here at the Star Wars Report podcast.
Shout out to Roll